Welcome to this episode of What's Happening Waupaca. I am Joni Kern. Today on the show, we have Deputy Sheriff Steve from the Waupaca County Sheriff's Office. Welcome to the show, Steve.
Hi, thank you.
You are also a boating instructor for the county, correct?
Yes.
So we're going to be talking today, because we're kicking off the summer, we're going to be talking today about boater safety. Okay? So what are some of the things, and I'm not quite sure, we're also going to talk about some really alarming statistics today, so we're going to kind of intermingle those. But let's talk about life jackets first.
Okay.
So now you have two different types of life jackets here.
Yes.
Correct? This is a life jacket as well?
Yes, it is. That's an inflatable type.
Show this. Oh, so what happens with this?
Okay. This one, if you go in the water, this is a manual one that I just brought for demonstration today.
Yeah.
But if you pull the cord on it, it actually opens up. The Velcro pops open.
Uh-huh.
And it inflates itself, and it looks like basically.
I've never seen one of these work before. This is kind of interesting.
Yeah, so it works on a CO2 cartridge, and the cartridge is not in here right now.
Uh-huh.
But basically, you pull this little cord here.
Yeah.
That would open up the cartridge, and this thing will open up on its own, and it inflates just like one of the old orange life jackets.
Uh-huh.
So it actually inflates itself, and if for some reason the CO2 didn't work, there's also a manual inflator on here where you can blow the thing up like a big balloon.
Okay, so why would I wear this over a regular life jacket?
To be honest with you, life jackets, there's lots of different styles out there. They all are built to do basically the same thing, to make you float. Mm-hmm. There are a couple of types that are better as far as if you're unconscious, if they would roll you over face up in the water or not. A type 1 will roll most people face up in the water, but it's more of a bigger, bulkier type. And those are the kind that you usually use in more open water things, such as on the Great Lakes and those places. A type 2, which is what this would look like if it was blowing up, will roll some people over face up, and that's the old, like we used to call them, the horse collars. So, and they're a little bit uncomfortable and bulky, but they're in some ways better than a lot of the other fancier looking things that are out there. This one will roll some people face up because it's built similar to the type 2. This other one that I have here, the vest, is a type 3, and if you're unconscious in the water, this will not roll you face up in the water.
Okay.
So, it's a little bit more stylish looking, probably a little more comfortable to wear, and there's lots of different variations of these. But, and it comes down to what do you want to spend on a life jacket. Some of them can be very inexpensive. The type 2, the orange, regular type 2s, you can buy those at Fleet Farm or Walmart or those places for like $8 a piece, where these are probably more in the $20 to $30 range, and the inflatables you're looking at spending over $100. So it depends on what falls in your price range and what kind of boating you're going to be doing.
So there are those of us that would say, and I'm going to play devil's advocate for just a second, because you're going to shoot me down, and I know it, is I swim like a fish. I've been swimming since I could walk. I grew up around the water. I don't need a life jacket. So if you're going to make me wear one, then I'm just going to pick up one of those $7 ones to have it in the boat, because it's not like I'm ever going to need it anyway.
Okay. What I ask people is this: when you get in your car, do you wear your seatbelt?
Am I supposed to say yes to that?
Yes. Answer that question.
Okay, sure.
Okay.
I do.
Okay, why do you wear your seatbelt?
Because it's the law.
Okay. What is the real reason besides it's the law? Why do we put our seatbelts on?
Well, we put our seatbelts on for safety.
Okay,
obviously.
in case something happens, right?
Sure.
Okay. So that's what life jackets do. Life jackets are kind of like seatbelts, where if you wear them when something happens, they're going to help you. If you're not wearing them, they're not going to help you if they're laying in the boat or they're in a compartment or somewhere.
And you're absolutely right. And I was just playing with you because I hear that a lot, and I really do swim very, very well. And, I have to say personally that I would be very agreeable to wearing a life jacket if I was on one of the Great Lakes, or if I'm water skiing, or if I'm doing something that's fast that I could get hurt. But if I was sitting out there in a kayak or in a canoe, I wouldn't feel like it was something that was necessary.
Yeah, and a lot of people think that because they're in a kayak or canoe or even on paddle boards, that they don't even need to have life jackets with them, which basically the law says that they do. Any boat that has anybody aboard has to have a wearable life jacket for everybody on board.
So define boat.
Well, by definition of the law, a boat is pretty much anything that floats on the water and you can use for transportation.
Okay, so that does include, and we need to tell people that does include paddle boating, it does include kayaking and canoeing and all of those other things that you can do. It's not just the motorized boat.
That's right.
Okay. Now, we're going to talk about something because we're talking about life jackets. You told me right before we started taping that there have been 3 fatalities so far this year in the state of Wisconsin.
That I know of, yes.
That you know of.
Yes.
We just got rid of the ice. You know, we wouldn't expect that so early in the season. And I know that you said that one was from Clintonville, which is very close to home.
Yes.
And that's really scary to think about. And it's scary to think about those kinds of accidents or those kinds of deaths on the water. You were also sharing with me that there's a pretty large number of boating accidents every year.
Yeah, last year alone, reported accidents, and when I say reported, that means that there was either somebody died, somebody was seriously injured, somebody was lost in the water, or they had $2,000 worth of damage or more. There were 108 reported accidents last year in the state.
And how many of those involved alcohol?
About 14%.
Now that's, 15, 16, something like
Somewhere
that
in there.
of those, which is way too many. And we were talking about how many OWIs were given out.
Last year alone, within Waupaca County, if I remember correctly, I believe there was 22 between the DNR and the Sheriff's Department, and that's just on the Wolf River and the Chain of Lakes.
And that's just a huge number.
Yeah.
You know, alcohol is a dangerous substance to mix with driving. We've had that pounded into our heads, but it's just as dangerous or even could be more dangerous in water.
It can actually be more dangerous. It takes only a third of the alcohol that it would normally take you on land to become intoxicated or to make you do things you wouldn't normally do on the water, because we have all the stressors on the water. We have the wind, the sun, the wave action, all that kind of stuff starts affecting your body. As a matter of fact, the normal person, if they spend 12 hours on the water on a day when it's windy or really sunny and those kind of things, can actually have the same kind of effect on their body as if they were at 0.10 or above without even drinking. And then you add alcohol to it and it just intensifies it so much quicker.
Sure. That's a scary thought. I mean, we really want to watch, if we're going out and boating for a day and having fun, we really want to watch whether or not we use alcohol and just stay safe. Because the amount of, and we went over some of these statistics, the amount of dollar damage, which I think was surprising to me, was $892,000 or something like that.
Right, and that was just the reported boat accidents that were $2,000 or above. Every year we have a lot of accidents that don't get reported because they're below that number, the $2,000 damage number. I know last year alone on the Chain of Lakes we had about 3 that I can think of right offhand that were not reportable, but there was still damage to people's belongings.
And we have a lot of boaters. Do you guys have any idea how many?
I don't remember what the numbers are, but Waupaca County is one of the number one, as far as numbers go for registered boats. I believe we're either number 1 or number 2 right in that area for the whole state.
So we're huge on the Chain of Lakes.
Yep.
Huge with the Chain of Lakes and with the Fox River. So tell me what else you have here.
Okay, so I brought some buoys along. The buoys are basically our signs on the waterways. They tell us about dangerous areas. They tell us about where we should be operating our boats. The red and green buoys, for instance, these tell us where we should be going in narrow channels or where we should be operating our boats so that we don't run into sandbars and those kind of things. I know on the chain of lakes, for instance, if you see the buoys, they're usually red and green. I always say red and green, stay between. It's pretty simple. If you're on a river system, sometimes they're a little different. If they may have just a red buoy or a green buoy, you need to know which side to be on. And the terminology we use there is called red right returning. So if you're going upstream or you're going against current, you want the red buoy on your right side. Okay. The other ones are informational buoys and controlled area buoys. The one with the circle, and this is what we need to know, is we need to know the difference in the symbols on the center of the buoy. So the circle means it's a controlled area. This one says no wake or idle speed. The other side says slow no wake. Slow no wake by statute is the slowest speed possible that we can drive to still maintain steerage of our boat. So if you're within an area, as you come up to that buoy, you have to slow down, and until you get to a point where you no longer see any more of the buoys, you have to stay at slow no wake speed. Once you get past it, you can speed up. The orange diamond is a hazard or danger buoy. Sometimes they'll have words in there. They may put rock or dam or whatever it might be on the inside of there, but it's telling you that there's a dangerous situation. The other diamond with the cross is a restricted area buoy. So this one says no boats, and the other side says swim area. So basically what that's telling you is within the buoyed area, you're not allowed in there with a motorized boat. Okay.
Which is a great safety thing for swimmers.
Right.
We don't want to be run over.
Yep, and the other one with the rectangle, it could be a rectangle or a square. This is an informational buoy. It's kind of like our green informational signs on the highways. They tell us about things that might be in the area. This one says marina entrance. You may have things like food, gas. You may have, I know on the river we have some that say caution blind curve, just letting you know that there's a blind curve there, not necessarily a slow no wake area. So you need to know the difference in what those symbols mean when you're out there.
So that's part of what you do because you're a boating instructor. So tell me about the classes. Have you started the classes already for this summer?
Actually, I have run 3 classes already this spring. One in Waupaca, one in New London, and one in Clintonville.
Okay. Are they just one day or a few hours?
No, they're 12 hours.
12-hour classes?
Yep.
Okay. And what all do they teach me?
Everything from getting to the boat landing to putting your boat in, the equipment that you need for your boat, the navigation rules, what the buoys mean, a lot of things about equipment, and that's the Wisconsin boating regulation pamphlet. It's kind of the Bible of what do I need and what can I do while I'm boating.
Sure. And what are the laws and does it talk about what the different signs
It
on
does.
the buoys is as well? So
Yes,
this is
it
a great
does.
informational booklet.
Yep.
So do you hold your classes all summer long?
I usually run 3 to 4 a year. I may be running one more yet this year. Sometimes I'll run one later, especially in the Waupaca area, because with the chain we have a lot of vacationers that come in, and you know the people are interested in running a class at that time of the year. So sometimes I'll run one in June.
Okay. So what happens? I buy a boat in July.
Okay.
And I really don't know a whole lot about what I'm doing, but I think I'm pretty smart. So if I decide to learn something, do I just pick up one of these handbooks, or can I call the sheriff's office and get some direction on what I'm supposed to be doing?
Yep, you can pick up a book, or if you see any of us out on the water, we usually have them in our boats with us. If you go on the DNR website, you can bring up a PDF file of the entire regulation pamphlet. You can also take, if you'd like, you can take a boater safety course online. So there's a lot of different areas where you can find the information that you need. I always suggest to take a boater safety course. I mean, I have obviously a lot of children that come through it, but I also have a lot of adults that come through, and when they get done, every one of them has told me, you know, there's a lot of things that they learn that they never knew before, even though they've been boating forever.
And we can take a class 1 year. We absorb, if we're paying attention, about 50% of what we hear are the
Right.
statistics. So, I mean, we could take it the next year and learn things that we hadn't learned the year before. And
Sure
it's
you
the
can.
same way with picking up the boats or picking up the booklets and just taking a glance through those.
Yep, I always suggest every year before we start, pick up a new booklet. I know last year they came out with this particular booklet. It's the same one we're using this year, but it does change occasionally. If there's any new rules, they'll add them in. Make sure you go through it. One of the things I always tell my classes when I'm running them in the spring is, as an officer, I'm human too, and I'm not perfect and don't remember everything. So teaching the boater safety course is a good refresher for me before I start to go out there and work.
Sure. Not only that, but if we're going to put our children through boating safety, we really should be there too, because I think it's a great example of we all have things to learn, and safety is important for all of us.
Yes, it is. And one of the new rules that came out just a few years ago, or not new, but newer, anybody born on or after January 1st of 1989 who are at least 16 years of age will now have to have the boater safety course before they can operate a boat on their own.
Well, that's an excellent idea. I mean, I need to get a driver's license or a permit before I can go driving around, and it's the same way with guns. And the boating certainly has its own avenue of dangers, so that makes a lot of sense. You brought along one more thing today.
Yeah.
What is this?
That is a fire extinguisher. It's a it's a very small fire extinguisher. There's some things that we need to know about life jackets and fire extinguishers to make them legal to be in our boats. And one of them is whether or not they're U.S. Coast Guard approved. This one is not. It's too small. And there would be an approval number if I look on the label where the UL listing is. There's normally a section there that will tell me whether it's Coast Guard approved or not. And if it was, it would say U.S. Coast Guard approval number, and then there's a long number that's on there. The other thing about this actually came out of a boat about 2 years ago. This particular extinguisher was manufactured in 1997. The gauge shows that it's basically empty. The handle's broken off, the pin is missing, and after I took this from the boat, the person let me use it for my classes. I took it home and tried it to see if it worked, and it was actually totally empty. So this is what they had on board their boat for their firefighting equipment. So it wouldn't have done them any good.
Yeah, and I was looking at that and I thought, that doesn't look very trustworthy. I mean, it doesn't. My husband has, we have fire extinguishers at home because he's on oxygen. And I will tell you that this does not look anywhere near as useful as the ones that he has, because they're, they're of course new. So before we close this today, because I think this has been a really important topic, Steve, and I'm really glad you're here, because we don't want accidents to happen and to have tragedy when we're trying to enjoy our time with family and friends on the lake. So is there anything else that you can stress to us today that's really important for us to take with us?
When we're on the water, we need to use a lot of common sense. It's no different than driving down the road or anywhere else. Speed is a big issue when it comes to accidents and some of the things that happen on the waterways. Just remember that, other people are out there. We need to be courteous to them. They should be courteous to us, and then everybody will be able to get along and have a safe boating season.
Terrific. And that's a great ending point for this. Thank you so much for coming, Steve. Thank you for sharing all of the things, especially about life jackets. That was an interesting way to start this, because, I mean, that's a real conversation that I'm sure lots of people have. So I appreciate all of the time you spent with us, and I appreciate that you're teaching boater safety here in the Waupaca area as well.
Thank you for having us.
You bet. Thank you for joining us for this episode of What's Happening Waupaca. We'll see you next time.